There once was a man named Pete. He lived with Jovan and Marguerite. Grow crops they did try, but starving they died, and he couldn't just waste their good meat. Hey guys, James here again with another game review, this time talking about the colony management simulation game, Rimworld, by Ludion Studios. How do I even begin to describe Rimworld? At its core, the game is like a mix of The Sims, and some city building or factory style games. I absolutely love this game, and think it's genuinely one of the most interesting gaming experiences I've had in years. I know it's a meme, but as a game, Rimworld has so much to offer, and it truly does have a little bit for everyone. The point of the game is to start a colony on a distant world called a Rimworld. You start off by selecting a group of survivors which the game generates for you. Depending on the mode you choose, the starting number of survivors may vary. Each survivor will have stats and different survival skills, such as cooking, hunting, planting, construction, social ability, and much more. Each survivor will also have different traits which might affect who they are and how they act in the game. For example, you might have someone who loves to eat and as a result always has low hunger. Or you might have someone who is ugly and everyone will judge them and dislike them when they first meet. These survivors land on a patch of land you choose, and from there they start to build your colony. Much like The Sims or even a game like Minecraft or Terraria, you can build your colony how you want, laying down every brick as you please. Additionally, to keep your colony fed and running smoothly, you need to assign survivors different jobs in the colony, and it becomes important to specialize and have different people prioritize work over others. Each survivor has needs which need to be met, a la The Sims, and having survivors in poor moods will increase the chances of them breaking down and becoming despondent to your commands. Also similar to The Sims, characters will have relationships with each other, and within your colony you might find love or hatred. Important to note is the game and the story of each colony is told through AI storytellers who, during the course of your playthrough, will cause different events and emergencies to happen. This can include things like invasions from rivals, fires, inclement weather, man-eating rabbits, you name it. Sometimes, these events can be tiny, but a lot of the time, especially when you're still learning the game, they're catastrophic and can potentially devastate your colony. Depending on the storyteller and difficulty you choose, the frequency and impact of these events will vary. The storyteller is a very important part of the game, as these different events will often lead to lots of memorable moments and potential tragedy. The storytellers also act as a form of balance, whereby the game will send bigger threats if you're doing well, potentially reducing your colony power and keeping you at a certain power level, dependent on the game difficulty. Even on low levels though, the game can be quite punishing. For a lot of these events, especially early on, you might find yourself with the opportunity to capture and take non-colonists as prisoners. An important part of the game is being able to care for these prisoners and determining whether or not you want to try and convert them to your side. If not, you could always release them, or do other things to them. More on that later. Over the course of the game, your colony will also be able to produce different products, and while it's definitely not the same as a factory game like Factorio, there is a sort of base setup management part of the game too, where ideally you'll want to place certain storage and production areas close together in order to maximize your colony's efficiency. There's a ton you can craft in this game, and it's pretty cool as you're able to trade things you craft with other colonies. You can create clothing, art, weapons, whatever you want. Hell, you can even sell drugs or human organs you harvested from prisoners if you so desired. Sometimes you'll have visitors who come by to trade with you, but you'll also have the ability to travel outside of your colony to complete quests, trade with others, or you can even attack other colonies and try to eliminate them from the map. This portion of the game feels a lot like a stripped-down version of the Oregon Trail, where you set up a caravan, decide who to bring along, as well as what to bring along, including food, and you send your travelers off. While you might not have a ton of control over the actual caravan itself, you'll often run into problems like terrible weather or bandits who attack your caravan, and these events will give you more to do. You may also find quests and areas for you to explore and gain some valuable loot as well. And so, remember when I mentioned that sometimes the AI storyteller might send attackers to your lands? Well, this actually happens pretty often, and what's cool about these moments is Rimworld incorporates a real-time strategy aspect into the game, so you can direct your troops when you need to fight. The actual mechanics of the combat are slow and a bit clunky, but this actually forces you to make sure that colonists are well positioned. Wow, so I went through all these different gameplay aspects, and yet I'm sure there's stuff that I might have forgotten to mention. Hell, I never even explained the final goal of the game. While the point of the game is for you to manage your colony, the main objective of the game is for your colony to progress to a point where you can craft a spaceship and attempt to escape the Rimworld and go to the stars. Trying to reach this objective can be quite time consuming, but I truly mean it when I say that this game is more about the journey rather than the destination. Sure, getting to the stars can be great, but honestly, most colonies will probably never make it to that point. That's just one of the things which is so great about Rimworld. It's a game which gives you total freedom on the experience you want. Maybe you want to create a giant 30-person colony. Maybe you want a colony with just one person who lives among animals. Maybe you want to create a mafia empire who sells drugs and organs on the black market. Maybe you want a colony of cannibals. Or maybe you want to form a colony which expands outward and takes over the Rimworld. although it's actually not suggested you do this because of the processing power you need to run multiple settlements, but in concept, that actually sounds pretty rad. My point is, however you want to play, you're capable of doing it. While none of the individual pieces of the game might be super deep on its own, when everything's pulled together, it creates a masterpiece. There's so much to learn and unlock in the game, and I'm sure even with all the time I've put into it, there's a bunch of stuff I probably haven't experienced yet. The game is really addictive, in the same vein as a game like The Sims, or even Civilization. Time really flies when playing the game, and I found myself up at 3 AM still playing.
The game can also be quite relaxing depending on the difficulty you choose, so it's a good game to sink hours into while you watch a show or listen to a podcast or something.
With regards to some of the technical aspects, graphically, the game is really simplistic, with graphics reminiscent of The Escapists or Prison Architect. It's not gonna wow anyone, and I would even say that it doesn't look good, but it gets the job done. The music is nice and has a sort of country, folky, space cowboy sort of feel to it, but I wish there were more songs, as I feel like I only notice a few in rotation. The game also has some other flaws and limitations I wanted to point out though. For example, I found the economy in the game to be a bit weird at times, and in particular, I found that some resources were pretty hard to come by, especially steel and components. Considering the fact that these two resources are pretty much part of every single important thing you want to create, I often found myself unable to progress at times due to the scarcity. There are obviously different ways to solve the problem, but it was definitely something I noted. Also, I think to an extent, the amount of actual control you have over individual colonists is not as great as you would imagine, which I know is misleading because I described the game as being similar to The Sims. While, yes, you can direct colonists to do specific tasks, totally micromanaging colonists is impossible and maybe not even really something you want to do. Colonists feel more like worker bees in a hive doing their assigned jobs, rather than, say, dolls you're playing house with.
They will strictly follow their schedule and work priorities. Also, a flaw is that the only way you can understand what your pawns talk about is by opening up a menu instead of having some sort of picture or animation overhead. This does make the whole relationship and social aspect a little more reliant on your imagination, and so if you wanted more of a life simulation game, this might not fully scratch that itch.
I think there's also a number of quality of life issues which can be frustrating. This sort of ties into my last point about control. There are some functions which the base game just doesn't really provide, such as building or replacing things you built before, and as a result, there are some parts that feel a bit more annoying than needed to be. Thankfully, at least on Steam, Rimworld has a crazy community of workshop mods which fix a bunch of the flaws with the game. These mods can help to balance the game, make the game feel a bit more alive, give you more control over some of the actions you can do, as well as fixing a bunch of the quality of life issues in the base game. With these mods, the game can be expanded a bunch and can really help tailor the experience to how you want it. Overall, would I say Rimworld is worth the $35 price tag? Absolutely. In some ways, it's a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none game, but it's ultimately a very unique experience with a ton of different aspects and depth to the game. Also, just something to note is that the developer's objective is to make the game as worth the price tag as possible, and as a result, the game, at least from what I've seen, never goes beyond 10% off, so you can buy it at that price without having to worry about future sales. So yeah, Rimworld is probably one of my favorite games I've played in a while, and definitely a game I'd recommend for anyone who might have an interest in management simulation games. But hey, that's just me. Let me know down below if you played Rimworld and what you think of the game. Got any crazy stories or recommendations of mods for me? I love engaging with my community and would love to hear from you. And of course, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider hitting that like and subscribe button as it helps my channel grow and motivates me to make more and better videos. And as usual, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.